Well, I want to thank everyone who attended today, and we had a full room of pretty much every law enforcement partner in the metro area, and with rapt attention for Director Ronald Davis. We're lucky to have him in his role for our country as Americans, but also we're lucky to have him and fortunate to have him here in the Duke City to be able to provide a little bit of wisdom, but also a little bit of help to violent crime in our community. And he's obviously here in his role as director of the U.S. Marshals Service, but has an extensive background with respect to crime fighting in Oakland and also in the Obama administration and the COPS program. And I hope we got every bit of information out of you that we could from all of his former work as well, because we had a very productive meeting. And what I'm going to do is share with you a little bit about the things that we covered, because they are also very relevant for our respective metro crime initiatives up in Santa Fe, and also the sort of signature item in there, which is dealing with this warrant backlog. We spent the preponderance of our time on that because, of course, the U.S. Marshals and Director Davis are literally our nation's experts in how to deal with those situations. Now, we covered a range of topics, and some of them fell under the auspice of a couple of announcements that we've made. Number one, that our real-time crime center is now available to all our law enforcement partners 24/7 in Albuquerque. And those of you who heard our announcement Friday got to see this facility and understand how valuable it can be. But also today we decided to up the ask with respect to the warrant fund from the state legislature. So we're now going to ask for a total of $20 million. That would be $10 million for the metro. That's double than what we asked for before. And there's an important reason for that. One of the things that we've learned is that we want to make that funding applicable to every piece of the system that is required with respect to warrants and warrant processing. So by increasing the funding, we will have enough available for the court system, possibly even the jails, and every aspect that's needed to really digest that warrant through the judicial system. And so we talked about what exactly it takes to do that. And there were a number of practices that the Marshal's office was able to share with respect to things like, a full range, and I'm just going to touch on them in no particular order, but the pre-planning that's required to serve some of these warrants and to amp up the volume of warrants to reduce risk and make sure that there is no unnecessary harm done to the individual, but most importantly to the family as well, and also the neighborhood and our broader community. And the U.S. Marshal's Office wonderfully is also being able to work with us on how to prioritize that warrant list. So who is the most likely to commit further crime? Who is the most at risk? And as part of that planning process, each individual warrant probably has its own unique method and strategy with respect to serving and what has to go into that. That includes mental and behavioral health analysis on the front end to understand what we're dealing with, not only with the individual, but also in the home. And again, with an eye towards reducing that risk to the community, but also the risk to the officers. We talked about how important it is and how dangerous, unfortunately, sometimes warrant serving can be, and how we need to reduce the risk to those officers. Now, a couple of other items that we mentioned as well, even what we do in jail, even for a short term, if folks are incarcerated. And most importantly, what we do with respect to if we can do more for detox, if we can do more for behavioral health and addiction, even in a short stay at our detention center. Now, a couple of other items too that I'll mention. We talked a little bit about with even our judges, the alternative courts that we have, and the need to have more of those. And that's been a part of the Metro Crime Initiative, but something that did not get a lot of attention last year. We very much want to push on that this year. Also looking at voluntary warrant surrender days, especially for the 60,000 outstanding misdemeanor warrants. There are ways to do this that are not traumatic and not dangerous. And a lot of that has to do with setting up voluntary warrant surrender days. And we were very excited that the judicial system was here, represented here, with initial thoughts on how we might be able to do that. Now, I think I would close by also articulating that we understand that part of this warrant backlog is identifying the types of warrants in that backlog, and we're preparing for that, and we're going to be able to explain the details of that in the upcoming session. But we also want to understand what we do with respect to our violence intervention program and the role those individuals may or may not play in the broader criminal element and frankly trafficking and gangs and so forth in our city. So by using a much more sophisticated social network analysis and other tools that are available, and looking at the intersection of domestic violence, of relative firearm charges and firearm issues, and also mental and behavioral health issues, we want to better understand how we're going to be able to process that. And so now I think our community should have confidence that because in part of the director's visit, but also the Marshal's office in general, in just 2 hours, we are in a very different place when it comes to how we would actually execute dealing with these warrant backlog issues in a productive and effective and safe way than we were before this meeting. And so with that, that's why I want to say thank you, Director, for coming here and sharing with us your expertise, and we'll hand the floor over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This is an interesting podium. One leg up. I don't know if you can see it from behind. Well, first, thank you for being here. And let me start by thanking the mayor and his team for the outstanding leadership, and thanking the U.S. Marshal for this district, Sonya Chavez, for inviting me. And anybody that knows the Marshal knows that invitation was a pretty strong invitation. It didn't leave much room for negotiation. But I'm glad I'm here for a couple reasons. The mayor mentioned about sharing my expertise, but candidly, the benefit of this visit was to hear what was happening in Albuquerque and the District of New Mexico, to understand what is in place to be able to respond to violent crime, and to better identify then how the United States Marshals Service can assist in that effort. And I will underscore the word assist, because it takes a comprehensive strategy to respond to violence. And when we start looking at the role that we can play, the mayor mentioned the 5,000 warrants. So clearly, we will help in executing and serving those warrants, the ones that we are allowed to adopt by law. But that alone doesn't do the job, but it is a necessary component of it. It works better when it's part of a larger strategic strategy where we're looking at other drivers, that we're focusing on the drivers of crime. We're looking at intervention. We're looking at prevention. You're looking at community engagement and involvement. It works better when all those pieces of the puzzle are in place. So I'm really looking forward to our partnership here, because those pieces of the puzzle appear to be in place. The partners that we talk to at the table are all coordinating and collaborating the way we should, communicating and share information, and I think it's going to be very productive. I will say in my visit here, part of it is in assisting the Marshal for the district. We will be providing her additional deputies that will be brought in from different parts of the country and the region, additional funding to support it, so that we are providing a serious commitment to help the city with the execution of the service of those warrants. We do believe that if you focus on those that are the drivers of the crime, it can have an immediate impact. Not only will you remove people that are responsible in many cases for a large amount of violence, but you're also giving justice to the victims. Whenever there's an outstanding warrant, not only is that person a continual threat to the community, there is a family, a victim's family, that is still wondering, is justice ever going to come for them or to them? And so I think that's important as well, that we don't forget that this is also victim-based, that we're worrying about that. This is very consistent, as you know, that the President of the United States and the Attorney General of the United States has made violent crime a top priority. You'll hear that as well from the U.S. Attorney for this district. And this is one way that we want to make sure that we are living up to that direction and that mandate, that we will provide additional resources, that we will engage to the extent that we can to help relieve that load. But it's not just going to be about the 5,000 warrants, which you hear from the Marshal. It is about a continued relationship and a very long-term relationship with not just our local and state partners, but also the community. So I learned a lot coming here today, and I'm going to take it back, and quite frankly, I'm going to share it with the other districts. We have 94 districts throughout the country, some 200 plus offices, and we work closely with over 16,000 local, state, and tribal law enforcement agencies on behalf of the American people. And I think the strength of the profession is that we learn from each other. We learn from our successes, we learn from our setbacks. And there's a lot of things at the table that are going very, very well. And as we proceed forward, I think there's more lessons to be learned that we can share so that we can put a grip on violent crime in the United States and not just one community. So once again, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your leadership. And at this point, I'll turn it back to you, sir.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much, Director. And what we'd like to do now is we do have some folks who want to share some remarks. There may be additional folks after. and I'll leave it up to our comms team. I'm not exactly sure how we're handling Q&A. But next up, we would certainly like to hear from our Chief of Police, Harold Medina. Chief.
And thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. And I just want to let everybody know that I'm very thankful for the U.S. Marshals Service being here and for everything that occurred today. But I think the one thing I really want to emphasize about today was it was a first for us as a city and as a county. I would like to commend Sheriff John Allen for being here today, being part of the conversation. Over the last several years, we've known that we have a strong relationship with the United States Marshals Service. We've had key arrests with the United States Marshals Service, with ATF, with FBI. Today was the first. We had the Sheriff's Department sitting with us, and I hope that the community sees that we are united with our Sheriff's Department, and we're going to move forward to ensure that we make the community as safe as possible. We also had members from the judicial here that talked about how warrant surrender days and how we could impact the system as little as possible with some individuals turning themselves in. So for me, the victory today was we added more pieces to the puzzle of the great relationships that we have created over the past 5 years, and that these increased relationships are only going to benefit the citizens of the city of Albuquerque in our quest to lower crime rates. And the message to the criminal element in the community is plain and simple. If you have a felony warrant, we are working to ensure that you go to jail. I think it's long overdue. It's important for us as a community to stand strong and recognize that individuals who have a warrant belong in jail, and there is accountability that needs to be had. And from today, I could say that everything that's occurred over the past few weeks, we intend to make sure that we work as hard as we can to clear up some of these felony warrants. So thank you, Director Davis, for being here today. Thank you for bringing the best warrant team in the United States to us, the United States Marshals Service. And thank you for bringing us all together today the way we came together. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And you couldn't have said it better in terms of a segue to our U.S. Marshal. Let's hear from Marshal Sonya Chavez.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank Mayor Keller for hosting us and for leading the discussion today. And of course, to our esteemed Director, Ronald Davis. Our job in the Marshal Service is to make our community better. And for those of us who live here, among all our community relatives, I mean, we're all New Mexicans, and I see my job as a U.S. Marshal for New Mexico to do my best to bring resources to our state to make it safer. My kids have grown up here, like many of yours. So we're excited about the momentum that has been building. There's a renewed sense of energy. In the last couple of weeks, we've all felt it in terms of reprioritizing and being, again, very, very strategic about how we're going to do this. I'm excited about that. And the message to the violent offenders out there is there's strength in numbers. And there's a whole lot of us who are working really hard every single day to make sure we do our best to keep our communities safe. And if you're a violent offender and you're running rampant in the city of Albuquerque and the surrounding area, we know who you are and we're going to find you. I feel very committed to that, and I know that the people standing with me up here today are just as committed. So we look forward to providing you with some incredible results in the weeks and the months to come. And we appreciate the partnership with our entire law enforcement community and with the city of Albuquerque, of course. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. And also we have, he's not really new anymore, but our recent, our U.S. attorney. And he's been a tremendous partner since he took over in this position. And so we're grateful that he's in this role. Our U.S. attorney, Uballez. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, for bringing us together. Thank you, Director Davis, for gracing us here in the city. And the Marshal Chavez, for all of the work that she has done. We in the federal government often do big long-term investigations. We think a lot. We delve into the weeds. We are very deliberate. We're very thorough. But the Marshal Service is certainly the most swift and certain of our components. And most of us are just trying to keep up. But our promise to you in working with the Marshal Service and working with the city of Albuquerque, the chief, is that we are looking at every single one of these cases. Although we are known for building our long-term investigations, although we're known for tracking down big names and big fraudsters and bringing big cases, know that we are looking at every single one of these cases. Know that there are prosecutors in my office We're evaluating whether or not there is a federal crime that we can hang on you. And if there is, we will do that and we'll see you in federal court. This partnership is incredibly important for this city. We are lending, I think as the director said, our assistance in this effort. Not every crime is a federal crime. But when it is, we will be there. And I will see you in those halls. Thank you all. I'll turn it back to the mayor.
Thanks so much, U.S. Attorney. Now, I'll check. Stacy, do we have others? Okay. And how you want to handle Q&A?
Great, we have just a couple of minutes if there's any questions for Director Davis, Mayor, any of our team here.
Do we know how many of those 5,000 are for violent crimes?
5,000.
Yes, we do.
60,000 is misdemeanor. Go ahead, Jim.
We have a little over 5,000 felony warrants, and the last numbers I got was there was approximately 30 for homicide that are out there. I think somewhere around 133 for aggravated assault, somewhere around under 50 for ag battery. And what we're going to do is we're going to work with the district attorney's office, and we're going to make a priority of which warrants we want to take into custody. It's not as simple as going and knocking on a door. Sometimes it is an investigation, and we sometimes have teams looking for individuals for numerous days. Just yesterday we had a very good day. We had a number of felony arrests, but those felony arrests were the result of weeks upon investigation. So we are going to identify which are the most active warrants, which we are the individuals we think are the drivers of crime, and we will focus on those warrants first. And the homicide warrants, obviously, we're priority, aggravated assault, robbery, and some of those violent crimes that are included there. Also, the activities that lead to violent crime. We know that narcotics dealing sometimes leads to violent crime, and we know that there's other crimes that in there that lead to violent crime. So we'll be focusing also on some of those crimes that, although they may not be violent, but we know they do become violent, and those are key individuals for us to take into custody.
Great, well, thank you everyone for coming. Any closing remarks, Mayor?
We just want to thank the director again. As a mayor of any city, it's always an honor to have somebody of his background, but also his level in our federal government here. And so on behalf of our whole community here in Albuquerque, thank you for your public service for our country, and also for visiting the Duke City.
Thank you.
You got it. Thanks, everybody.